Hey everybody, welcome back to the Paid Search Podcast. My name is Jason Rothman. As always, I'm joined by the great Chris Schaefer. Chris, how's it going today?
It's so good to be with such a happy, jolly man, Jason. I am so glad to see you. That face, something I haven't seen in 2 weeks now.
Yeah.
I've been gone a little bit, doing a little traveling, a little family vacay, and it's good to see you.
How
How
was
you
your
been?
bait? I've been great. Yeah, just
Yeah,
checking in. Yeah, I've been great.
focusing on business. You got your business shirt on, Rothman PPC on your shirt there, all professional looking.
Yeah, it's definitely focusing on business. It's January, Chris. It's a new
Yeah,
year.
yeah.
Anything is possible. How was your vacation? Where did you?
Yeah, I
What did
I,
you
I
do?
went I went to Colorado to ski.
Did you ski?
I did.
Did Did you snowboard?
I'm pretty. No, I don't do that.
Oh,
I'm I'm
snowboard's
not
so
a
much harder than it seems. You know
Texans.
how many times I've heard
Texans
that?
Texans don't really snowboard. It's
Yeah.
like so much effort for us to get to the mountains and ski, and snowboarding takes a lot of effort to learn. Skiing
Yeah,
is
yeah.
just kind of a natural thing, and you have to learn how to snowboard. So no, I'm a skier. Pretty
Good
good.
time. Good time though.
I'm
Did you
pretty good,
relax?
Jason. Um, you can't really relax when you can't breathe.
Why couldn't you breathe?
Oxygen. They apparently
Oh,
they don't know what oxygen is up there. You're 15,000 feet, whatever it is. I mean, at the very top of this crazy
you could feel it.
mountain. Oh my goodness.
Wow.
Yeah, just walk up a flight of stairs, and I feel like I'm 500 pounds.
Did you get any CrossFit in up there?
I know, absolutely. Well, skiing.
Yeah.
Jason, I went 46 miles an hour. That's how fast I skied.
Really?
You can
Really?
download the app. You can download their app, and it tells you how fast you went. I went 40. First day one, I was 36, and then I was like, I can beat that. Then like I got to 38,
Did you feel good about that?
42,
You were
40, 46.
feel fast?
It was a little. When I hit 46, I remember when I did it, my legs were shaking. Like I was, I was going really fast. Just
Talking about
zooming.
your birthday or
So
skiing when you hit 46?
I, I'm, yeah, no, no. I'm young. I'm way younger. Super young,
So
healthy,
yeah, just trying to ski.
like a pup.
Well, good. I'm glad you eat some good food, normal food. What'd you do for
Yeah,
food
I
while
mean,
you
you don't
were
go.
on
Yeah, I
vacation?
mean, yeah. There's a Mexican food place. I mean, just ate. I think I gained like,
Restaurants?
you go and ski,
Yeah.
and you get a lot of exercise in, and I think I gained 5 pounds just because I ate for like 8 days straight, of eating out.
It's good.
Because
Yeah.
we drove there. I don't like to fly, so we drove there. So I just ate out for like eight days
A
straight.
lot of fast food on the road.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just eating whatever I want, dessert every meal. Like I think I gained like
Did you
5 pounds.
drive? Did you drive through like southwest Colorado, like southern Colorado?
Oh yeah.
Out by not much going on out there.
Oh, it's one of our favorite drives. We go to one of our places that we like up there in more of a western Colorado area, and there's this
Yeah.
little secret drive we take that just goes through just a beautiful valley. Yeah, I love it there. It's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Well, good. I'm glad you had a good time. Speaking of New Year's, this episode we're going to talk about brand new Google Ads accounts and kind of how to launch them with
Yeah.
long-term success in mind. And we're going to be kind of explaining that, covering some things that you can do wrong on these builds, and we'll be talking about why they're wrong and why they can, what negative results that can come from them. So, very much a cool episode, and we're gonna get into it right after this message from Chris about Optio.
Are you looking for a toolkit to help you manage your Google Ads? Maybe you have multiple Google Ads accounts. Maybe you have one. Either way, Optio is the tool that you're looking for. And there's a special offer that you only get from the Paid Search Podcast. We have an exclusive deal with them where you can try their tool for zero money, zero down for 2 months. You can try this amazing tool. This is a complete toolkit for Google Ads. This is not built as a marketing tool for all your networks. If you listen to this show, we care about the number one marketing network in the world, and that's Google Ads. That is where you can get your business and you can get the right people coming to your site and you want to optimize that process, you want to be even better at it, you need Opteo. That's opteo.com/PSP. That's opteo.com/PSP. Look for the little pop up in the bottom left corner. It'll say, hey, did you hear about us on the Pay Search podcast? Click on that. Let them know you want a double helping of that good free month.
Great. Okay. Thanks, Chris. So let's just kind of start off talking about new builds in general. Chris, have you been launching new accounts, doing new builds? Keeps you fresh as a Google Ads manager, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It's always an ongoing process. New accounts, new websites, new ideas, new strategies. Yeah, and I'm glad we're talking about this because this is the biggest barrier to people getting started with Google Ads is like, where do I start? What do I do?
Well, for people out there watching and listening and just kind of thinking about Google Ads, when you think about just overall, like an overview of a new campaign, what kind of mindset would you say? What kind of mindset do you have when you're building a new campaign? And kind of what are you looking out for? Like what mistakes are you trying to avoid having built so many at this point?
The number one thing is, it's hard to say number one, number two. I mean, both number one and number two is number one and number two is the wrong traffic, making sure, I'm not getting the wrong traffic. And then number two is making sure that I am showing up, making sure that, when I do get the right traffic, that I'm showing up for it. So, the biggest mistake is the wrong traffic, and I'm not even bidding right. I'm not even showing up in the right places. I'm at the bottom of the page. So I'm not even playing ball.
Yeah.
That's what I have to make sure I'm doing. That's the priority. First, am I in the right general area? And am I even a threat to the other companies that are selling the same thing?
Yeah. I think for me, my mindset going into new builds at this point, like just having done them over and over and seeing, I guess what I'm saying is like new builds, to me, it's a very personal thing in terms of like what you should be looking out for, what you should keep top of mind. I think the problem with new builds and brand new accounts is the ability to make a mistake is very high. Like the risk of making a mistake is really high, and the stakes are high because if you make the wrong kind of mistakes so early on, there's a lot of things where you won't even know what you're missing. You'll just go down this rabbit hole of like trying to fix a bad campaign from the start, and you can kind of mess yourself up. And so you can mess yourself up in different ways. My mistake that I make most often is I try to, just given my Google Ads experience, I try to take that experience and make the perfect build, the perfect account from day one, because a lot of times I do that. But what I found recently with Google Ads is that's just not the right way to go about it. And I'm trying to remind myself when I do new builds, keep an open mind, leave things relatively simple, leave things relatively open, and start perfecting it once the data comes in. But allow the data to come in, if that makes sense. So that's been my biggest mistake is I make things too narrow, too focused, and too optimized, if you will, for a brand new account, where really it's more about let's leave this kind of wide open and see what's going to work as the data comes in for the first 1 to 3 months. Do you think that's a valid thing to do these days, leaving things kind of open and not trying to overdo it?
It started to become true a few years ago, and it is 10 times more true now. Absolutely. We have a great list here, and I don't want to spoil in it because so much of the advice that you're going to go through here is 100% true. So yeah. I say let's jump into it.
Well, let's jump into it. We're going to kind of talk about, I guess we're going to take a approach where like these are some common mistakes that you could make with a new build. And the first one is, I'm going to say it, Chris, zip code targeting.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with including zip codes within a larger area so you can get data on them.
Yeah.
But when I think about how to mess up a build and how to kind of just lead to a bunch of frustration as you go through those first 1 to 3 months, I'm going to say if you do zip code targeting, you're going to run a high risk of leading to frustration. What are the negative consequences that can come from zip code targeting, Chris?
There's So number one is if you are in any kind of area, if you touch even slightly an area of housing or money, finances, anything, medical stuff like that, you could immediately be restricted and lose the ability to even run ads. Potentially even worse if you start running zip codes because of fair housing and all kinds of stuff having to do with picking certain zip codes.
Just sensitive topics.
Yeah, it's much more liberal than you think. The amount of you might not even touch real estate, but you might offer a class on real estate. How to sell real estate. Boom. You can't use exclusively zip codes. You may not even be able to use zip codes at all. The other issue is fairly obvious, but if you use a whole bunch of zip codes, you may get half the traffic that you're expecting or that you could get. So you could add all the zip codes in a state and you may not reach the people that you want to reach because there's a lot of times people fall between the cracks on those zip codes. People just don't match to a certain zip code. So it can be absolutely destructive to the reach of your campaign.
Yeah, and when you think about where, like, we always give the example, people work downtown, then they live in a suburb, whatever.
Yeah.
They're across, and then they go to lunch during the middle of the day, and they're in a different zip code, and maybe that's the point where they're searching to do their kind of errands for the house and trying to find a plumber or whatever, plumber in Fort Worth. But you run the risk of them not being in the zip code when they do the search. The other thing is, most businesses, like most local businesses, they serve more than one zip code. And you can just kind of, even if you have the 3 best zip codes that you serve, you still get a ton of business from other places. But I think the more to the Google Ads point, it just doesn't seem to work. Like, can we explain it fully? I don't think so. Do we have the documentation? I don't think so. But given what you and I have seen over the years, when I think zip code targeting, like only target these zip codes, or we want to target the entire Dallas-Fort Worth metro, and we want to target 85% of the zip codes, and that's still a ton of population. But doing it that way, it just never, stuff always seems to go wrong. And why is that? I don't really know, Chris, but do you agree that like stuff always seems to go wrong, or it's associated with bad performance when you do that?
It's almost as if the zip code now is like an exact match. So if somebody tells me I want to run these 1,500 exact match keywords, it's the same reason that would fail is the same reason that somebody who wants to run 1,500 zip codes. I don't exactly know why, but there's something that the system no longer respects anymore about that kind of precision targeting.
Now, so a lot of people will say, well, we do want to target most of Houston, but there's these areas in Houston we just don't do business in, or these complete sides of town that we just don't have customers from. How do we do the targeting then if you're going to say and it's not that you can't do zip codes that are layered on, but just zip codes. I just never do because it's not going to lead to good things. So why don't you go through some examples of what you can do? Towns, radiuses, stuff, cities.
Yeah, the best thing to do if you want to try and push a specific zip code is you use a layered system. So you might add a county, a city, a radius. You could possibly do that, and then add some zip codes on top of that, so that you have a wider area added with some smaller areas. And that's usually the best way to approach it, where you're not going to have too much restriction. So it's basically kind of like using broad keywords or phrase keywords with exact match. You don't really ever want to run exact match exclusively. You want to have some other sample keywords out there. And that's what the wider geographic area really represents.
Yeah. And I think the overall mindset that I bring to brand new Google Ads accounts is going from a wide to narrow path over time. So I like things to be as wide as possible. So if you're a plumber in Dallas, Fort Worth, and you're located in Fort Worth, I'm not going to say you got to do a metro of like 12, 15, whatever it is, like 12 million people in all of Dallas, Fort Worth, where one side of Dallas, East Dallas, is like a 45-minute drive from Fort Worth or an hour drive. I don't think you need to target the entire metro, but I will say, like, don't do a few zip codes in Fort Worth. Like, put a 5-mile, a 10-mile radius around all of Fort Worth. Do the 3 counties or the one major county that touches Fort Worth. I really have been getting into county targeting. Depends on the state and how the counties are laid out, but counties is a great one. But the overall mindset is go from as wide as makes sense, but wide. And over
Hmm.
time, as you get data or you decide what you want to do with your budget, at some point you can go more narrow to the best performing traffic once you get that data. But wide to narrow is the mindset, and the narrowest zip codes is a mistake.
Yeah,
If you want to have trouble with your builds, definitely zip
definitely,
codes is the way to do
definitely
it.
do that.
But if you want to avoid a mistake in the location area, just not doing zip codes only. It's fine to layer on, but doing them only is, I think, a mistake. So
Yeah.
let's talk about another mistake, Chris, and that's playing games with your scheduling. And so why don't you break down kind of what a schedule is, what that refers to, and then what games are with it?
Yeah, so ad scheduling is an option that Google gives us in any search campaign, YouTube campaign, display campaign, whatever you want to run. You always have an ad schedule option. So what a overbearing manager might do, and I've seen this before, where they might run an hour from 6 to 7 because they know that's a really good time, and then I want to run again from 11 to 1. And then I want to run again from 3 p.m. to 9 p.m. because mainly that's this kind of segmentation without metrics to prove that this is going to work. If you start, because we're talking about new Google Ads campaigns, if you start with this kind of assumption that when your best times of day are and you're not going to run anywhere else, this is a mistake. Just like Jason said, hey, you're looking to ruin your Google Ads campaign. Do this. Split your ad schedule into small little segments and block out 85% of the day and only run at certain areas. Monday to Friday, great. 8 to 5, great. 9 to 4, okay, fine. But you need large areas for your ads to run, as you'll hear with much of the discussion you're giving here. Small segmentation is not going to work well.
Yeah, there's so many things you need to worry about when you launch a brand new Google Ads account. And like, if you run 24/7 and you've seen some piece of content out there that says like, oh, well, the 12 to 1 a.m. hour, you better be careful. And so you put a 50% negative bid adjustment on there. That's not the mindset to have when you launch a Google Ads account. That's like going way, way too granular in terms
Yeah.
of performance data that you don't even have yet. And you're
Yeah.
worried about the wrong things if you're worried about that. So just like the location, the scheduling, whatever makes sense for your business. So like if you have $1,000 a month budget and you think the market on Google Ads is like 5 to 10,000, like you're a mover or something, you can spend that full 1,000 during business hours when you're available to take the calls. Run Monday through Friday on business hours, but there's no need to like turn it off between the 2 to 3 p.m. hour because you've just had a bad experience in the last month with those calls, or put a negative bid adjustment on there. Just kind of hang back, wait, see what the data says, and don't go so granular until you've got some real data on this, or until there's a reason to do it. But it almost seems silly to cover, Chris. Like, it's not something I would ever think of doing, like hour by hour bid adjustments before you even launch.
Oh
Honestly,
yeah.
once you start running, there's really not much of a need to do it for most of the hours. But it seems to be business owners are attracted to doing this once they have the option to do it. They like to kind of
Yeah.
explore that.
It seems like kind of an addiction where they think that they're simulating some kind of automated AI system. They're like, I know I can spot this, and I'm going to bid this up 5%, and this one is going to be down 15%. This is ridiculous. Don't I think you say it best when you refer to scheduling games. You're playing a game here, and you're the only one playing. This is not gonna provide any uplift for your account.
Yeah. So continuing the theme here of like ways to bring problems to your Google Ads life, setting up a
I like that.
new Google Ads account with no effort on conversion tracking.
Yeah, that's a good idea. That's a great idea to ruin your account. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's not that if you just can't get it in place, fine, you can't get it in place, focus on search terms, but there's so many powerful things you can do these days with conversion
Yeah.
tracking, and we'll kind of cover those here in a minute. But because of what you can do, I think it's worth investing some time into figuring out. So, Chris, too strong attack here that a brand new campaign needs conversion tracking? Is that too strong? How do you feel about conversion tracking these days for brand new accounts?
I mean, sometimes getting conversion tracking is impossible because I just launched a new big company that wanted to spend a bunch of money, and we
Hey,
didn't.
Chris, my favorite is, speaking of impossible, when you build the new campaigns, the new
Hmm.
account,
Hmm.
and you send over the conversion tracking and the code and instructions, and then you
Yep.
get the email back. Do you have the password for our website? No, we just
Yeah.
met 7 minutes
Yeah.
ago. How
Yeah.
how would I have the login for you? I get that every now and then.
Yeah.
So
That's
sometimes
good.
it is impossible, but sorry, you have this big client.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. So yeah, high spend client, and they're ready to get going. We have a budget for the month of January, and it's like already the second week of January. We need to start spending that budget. We need to start going. Conversion tracking was not possible, and that's like a plan,
Yeah.
phase two kind of thing. Let's get the ads running. So I'm not saying
That's
that.
okay. Sometimes I've been there where it's like, we're gonna just launch, get some data, and we'll get the conversion tracking place.
Sure,
I've been
that's
there for
fine.
sure.
That's fine. Yeah, yeah. So I don't think it's a day one kind of thing, but it definitely needs to be a month one, month two kind of
Yeah.
thing for sure.
Yeah, and so part of the reason it's so important these days is it opens up so many possibilities in Google Ads. And to me, the main kind of theme that it opens up is that without conversion tracking, managers like Chris and I are very, very reliant on the search terms, what people
Yeah.
actually type in Google, and that becomes our North Star and that guides our work. And if we're showing up on searches that show the person's actually looking for your business and they are a potential customer, um, that's as good as we can do. And it's pretty good because you're getting in front of people looking for exactly what you offer. But Google's system has become more powerful in recent years, and they just seem to have a lot of knowledge about the person doing the search in addition to the search itself. And what's been happening in recent years is, and really the last like 6 to 12 months, you get these people that are the right people that are doing searches that may or may not be the right searches. And old school
Hmm.
Google Ads, where you have to focus on the search terms only, um, you would just have to show up on the right searches, and the searches where they may or may not be the right person, we were a little hesitant to show up on them because the knowledge about who was doing that search and the performance from those searches was not as strong. But now with things like maximize conversion bidding, and just some other features that we have like performance max, Google can say, well, this is the right person doing a search that sometimes isn't the right search, but we know it's the right person. So the odds are very high that it's going to become a conversion. And then you can show up on those, and it expands the reach of Google Ads and expands the targeting options, and all of that comes into place because of conversion tracking. So if
Yep.
you want to do things right, you want to get conversion tracking in place. So that brings us to keywords and ad groups, Chris. One of the biggest mistakes you can make on a build is overbuilding and building more than the magic number of, I don't know how many ad groups.
Yeah.
What is that magic number, Chris? It's going to depend on every business, but there
Yeah.
is a way to kind of determine what the number is for your business. I think it's the number of unique services that the business offers that can guide the service to keyword ad group. You may have heard of it, SCAG. That's what it stands for in my world, service to keyword ad groups.
Service to
Do,
keyword.
do
Yeah.
you think that's a good rule of thumb that the number of services drives the number of ad groups? And if you cross that line, and if you have more ad groups than services, you're messing up.
Yeah.
Is that a fair rule if we got to have rules?
Yes, I agree. I like the rule. Can I reword the rule? And instead, I know I love your SCAG because you wrote that whole like service to keyword ad group, a year or more ago. I still love it,
Okay.
but sometimes businesses don't understand what service means, and they think they do 15 different things, and they're roofers. It's a roofing company, and they think they do 15 different things. So
Okay.
instead, what we probably could define it as is value or type. When you have
Business line.
a service that has a different value, maybe
Okay.
you do, they're all residential, but sometimes it's a big home and sometimes it's a small home. Sometimes it's a new roof and sometimes it's a roof repair. That there's a different value or a different type. Maybe there's a different type.
Chris,
Is it too far?
on a new build, let's think about what we're saying here,
Hmm.
because I've been in the roofing space.
Yeah.
Um, are you going to be able to control the roof repair keywords from coming into the new roof ad group? Or are you just
No.
going to have a freaking beautiful,
Yeah.
high performing 2023
Yeah.
ad group called roofing and you just get going? You know what I'm saying for the build?
Yeah.
Because I run in this is the mindset I'm trying to keep top of mind because I've done that so many times where I try to think about what the next 2 to 4 weeks is going to look like as that roof repair search term comes in. I'm not saying I'm right. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying it's
It
worth thinking
it's
about because it's a very long, it's not a dark path, but it's a long path that you can go
yeah.
down thinking this way, and then it takes a long time
That's
to get back. You know what I
that's
mean?
that's true. You're right because I'm approaching it in a very knowledged, experienced kind of way, and we're
Yeah.
talking about new campaigns. So you're probably right. I just had a problem with the service aspect, but keeping it simple is probably better.
But to
And to say it even simpler,
yeah.
if you have more than 7, if you have more than 5 ad groups, you might want to question what you're doing.
I think 5 is question, and then 7 is
You,
really
uh,
no, no, no. We're
uh,
gonna no, no. 7, you got to really question what you're doing. Now, here's where it gets gray, Chris.
mhm.
What if a roofer is out there and they're like, well, we do want a roof repair ad group on its own because that's like that's our most profitable service, and that
Sure.
leads to new
Okay.
roofs, and we just love that model. Like we love getting leads that have a problem with their roof, as
Yeah.
opposed to people that are like, oh, it's been 20 years and might as well do something. Um, if that's the advertiser, the odds are they probably have a page on their website called Roof Repair or
Yeah.
Repairs.
Yeah.
So because it's so advertiser specific, and because I get the argument, like, yeah, roof repair ad group, maybe that makes sense. Maybe it's like you just match the pages on your site to your ad groups, like your service pages.
Okay.
And
Okay.
if it's been important enough for you to have a page on it, make an ad group on it
I
and see
like
what
that.
happens. Yeah.
I like that. That's a better definition.
The
Good.
rule is not a rule yet. The it's the knowledge that there needs to be a rule,
Yeah.
but I guess we don't know how to phrase the rule yet.
Yeah.
But that's the mindset around it. Another way to kind of mess up your build and really lead to problems, and if you really want to punish someone and you don't like them and you want to cause them stress, tell them to build an exact match only
Oh my
campaign
gosh. Yeah.
and get good results. Chris, when I think of you, I think of a lot of things. I think of Texas. I think of your wife. I think of my
Oh,
conversations with. What did I do? I think of Texas.
yeah. You said yeah. There's something after that.
There's a lot of things I think about when I think about the great Chris Schaefer. Honestly, top 5 that comes to mind.
Yeah.
And maybe you need some new hobbies because this is top 5. Top 5. Sorry, spilled a bunch of water. Hey, you're gonna have to talk in a second. I gotta wipe that up for sure. I'm just sick of not being able to talk today, and I had to take out my frustration. But you might need some new hobbies, Chris. We're talking about your problems today, Chris.
We're just gonna go on for.
Yeah, I feel better.
Okay. Okay. Look at this water.
It's half empty right now because half of it's on the floor. I'm gonna clean that up as soon as you
Scared your dog
start
too. I
talking
heard
here.
your dog like jump a foot in the air.
I'm just sick of not being able to talk. I gotta wake up here.
Oh
There's
boy.
a lot of things I think about when I think about the great Chris Schaefer. Top 5.
Uh-huh.
One of them is phrase match keywords. You're like the king of phrase match.
I do love, yeah.
Every time I overdo it on exact match, and I'm like, why am I not getting good results? I think of you and I think of phrase match, and I think
Yeah.
about those search terms come in, and I don't like some of those search terms, but I'm like, it opens things up, and you get so many more conversions, and that's the whole name of the game here is getting
Yeah.
new business. Why don't you take a minute to talk about how awful an idea it is to just do exact match only from the beginning, and then how beautiful search terms are, and I'm going to clean up the floor.
Oh yeah, you do that.
Keep it going.
Okay, so when you run an exact match campaign, I recently actually did a test on this. I had an account that had been running for a very long time, and I paused everything and said, okay, let's try something. Let's try something. I ran about 100, 250, something like that. Exact match only keywords. And one of two things happened. Either the traffic did not come in at all. There were maybe zero impressions and zero clicks on the keywords, or they did get impressions and clicks, and those search terms that came through were absolute trash. They were competitors. They were things that were, completely off topic, and we could not get enough negative keywords to stop it from happening because there wasn't enough similar types of base terms to block those negative keywords. It was so erratic. It was absolutely insane. And what we did was I took that exact same thing and I removed those exact match keywords and used the strategy that we had talked about of using phrase match. This thing we always talk about, having much more simple approach instead of a systematic, 200 exact match keywords. I did that and suddenly, boom, all of the traffic came through. It was clean. And I did not need to have 1,000 negative keywords to control it. Again, same thing Jason said earlier. Ask me why this happens. Ask me why exact match keywords can self-destruct a campaign. I don't know. I do not know, but I know it's true. I 100% know it's true, and it happens. That test was the cleanest, most black and white test I'd ever seen before, and it absolutely makes a difference.
Yeah, and I've been there, Chris, where it's like one of these things we're talking about where it's just based on experience. But what happens is sometimes I'll do a filter for like, how am I exact? Get that freaking smirk off your face. That was 5 minutes ago. We got to come up with new comedy. People want it fresh. You're gonna rely on old comedy. People are already over it. I'm over it. Everyone's over it.
I'm still thinking about hearing.
Wipe it off your face. The only thing that's worth thinking about with comedy with the show, like months and months later in the future, is that one time when Facebook stock was down like 60% and their whole targeting broke, and then I screamed to the camera like I'm still here. That was an all-time great moment from the show. But a little throw of a water ball. Like, how long have you been doing the show with me? Like you think that's a moment? You think that's a highlight reel? All right, Chris. The thing with exact match is sometimes I'll filter for a phrase match and exact match, and the exact match keywords will be getting better performance. Sometimes not, but sometimes they are. Okay. And then I'll be like, they're getting great performance. Why do I have to deal with all these search terms coming in from phrase?
Okay.
Let me just go exact. And then it's like you press a button that says self-destruct campaign. Yeah. And then it's so annoying because like the same keywords start getting worse performance.
Yeah, it's like, oh, you like this? Yeah, it's like you bring in too many
of trap that they set, and it's like you fall. They're like, oh, you were never a real player anyway. Like, get off the team. It's weird.
It's like when you want to lose weight and you're like, hey, I have an idea. I'm going to eat one thing. This one thing. I like this. That when I eat this, it works really well. I'm going to do only this one thing. Yeah. And for some reason, it self-destructs.
Let me take off the crown of the king of metaphors and or similes or whatever. And let me give the crown to you for today, because that was an amazing one. Because you have to live in reality. Because like, yes, in the lab, only eating chicken breast for the rest of your life, you'll lose weight.
Sure,
but you can't do that. It's impossible.
You can't do it forever.
So therefore, you won't lose weight because it's impossible. So you have to live in reality. And I've seen it a few times work, the exact match, but the reality,
don't do it.
It's not
it's the exception, not the rule.
That proves the rule.
Yeah.
That we have these exceptions, and it's been so rare. So the reality is, like, you got to show up on a number of searches. People don't search the same thing every single time, and you're really, it's self-destructive to do that. Now, how do you fix those phrase match? Not the topic for this show, Chris, but it seems like sometimes just like a couple negative keywords, pausing one or two of the phrase match keywords out of the 20, there's remedies there. But yeah, there is kind of, and it's very much, a lot of these tips are from people that are brand new to Google Ads, but the exact match only one, that's a trap I fall into myself as a very experienced Google Ads manager. So that's a really tough one there. We talked about the number of ad groups needing to be manageable and limited, and we don't have an exact number because every account's different, but it's kind of one of those things you'll know it when you see it, when it's too much. Same thing with keywords in an ad group, Chris. How many is too many? I don't know, but can we put it this way, Chris? You can go much more wrong on the large number side than you can on the small number side. Like, you can always add more keywords, and if you have one keyword in your ad group, 2 keywords, 3 keywords, 4, great. You can add more when you need. If you add a 50 early on and you split that data across the 15 that actually get data, but the search terms are all similar. Am I making sense? Is that a
No,
mistake? Like,
no,
is
you're
that the problem that comes from too many keywords? Like, I know
there's
you
a
agree with me that too many keywords is an issue. Why? What's the problem with that?
it's I'm not going to speculate about why the system may not work as well. I'm going to talk more about the human side. The human side is this: you get paralyzed. It is more difficult
Yeah.
for you to make a decision when you have 200 keywords in an ad group. And I'm not even talking about the fact that maybe some of those keywords are not getting the respect and the spend and the bids that they deserve because they're they're never getting their chance to shine. So regardless of that, there's a paralyzation with your ability to analyze the data and make some clean decisions. I can't tell you how many times I see other managers that I talk to that like, I don't know what to do with this account, and I jump in. I'm like, well, of course you don't. You look at this, and this is stressful even looking at it. How can you possibly analyze a mess like this? And that's a good sign. Too many keywords in an ad group. I think 20 is a good, solid, manageable number.
And I would say most of the time I'm not getting near 20. Maybe if I have phrase and exact together,
Sure,
maybe it gets up to
maybe.
20. But I mean, if you think about the core words,
If
with
you
those
don't,
match,
don't think that you need to hit 20. Thank you for clearing that up.
Yeah.
You don't have to have 20. If you have 10, if you have 5, fine. Leave it.
And again, I think the mistake can be more made on the going too far side than the
Yes.
short side there. If you have like maybe 4 or 5 keywords that actually represent the service, and we'll get those kind of searches.
Put the SEO tool down, sir.
Yeah.
Drop the SEO tool. Don't use it. You're going to kill your account.
I was speaking with a client the other day, and one of their team members has a background in SEO, and they were asking me about some of those keywords. We had a good discussion about like, it's just a different platform. And we talked about the low search volume status that can arise from those long tail keywords. So it's definitely a different mindset. Just to wrap up the keyword conversation here, negative keywords. If you have more than 0 negative keywords when you start a campaign, no, I'm kidding. What's the right number? You put it this way: you shouldn't need a lot of negative keywords before you even start.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's a warning sign. Yeah. If you let's say it this way, if you discover 300 negative keywords, that means that you probably did too much keyword research from the beginning. The problem is not the negative keywords; it's the fact that you realized what those 300 were and you came up with them. The keyword research is the problem. You should not be keyword researching so deep, because that keyword research is an absolute guess until the rubber hits the road. You need to know what's actually going to work, and you'll never know what works until you hit the go button on Google Ads. So leave the keyword research alone. Those 3,000, 1,500, 300 negative keywords, it's overdoing it.
It's risky, because if you got that list from a friend or from your old, like when you were running the account in the past or whatever, and you're like, well, we ran in the past, it was on this other campaign, and we're going to apply these negative keywords to a campaign that's totally different in a totally different year.
Yeah.
You get some of those clients that haven't been on Google Ads in years, and they have this whole campaign. Well, the problem of adding anything over 30, basically anything you have to sift through, if one of those negative keywords was either the word is messed up, or like it's actually a word you want to target now as part of your keywords. If one of those negative keywords blocks a lot of your good traffic, and there's tons and tons of negative keywords to sort through, you're really running a risk there of like blocking great traffic and not even knowing you're doing it, and not even knowing how to go find how you're doing it if there's too many negative keywords. So really, it's not a good sign that you've built the right campaign if you feel the need to add a ton of negative keywords right from the start. We're going to take a break, Chris. After the break, we're going to talk about maybe one of the most consequential parts of building a new campaign in terms of making mistakes, the bidding. And then we're going to get into what we look for after a launch, and possibly what we look for after a launch is going to be the next episode. We'll see. I think it might merit its own
Oh,
episode. And
okay.
one of us had the idea about that before the show,
Yeah,
and
we
the
won't
other one of us
mention.
shot it down, but it might have been the right idea. And how could not the right idea possibly not come from me, from you?
Yeah.
Are you messed up here? Well, it's okay. Let's take a break.
Okay,
We'll
thank you.
dance a little bit and we'll figure
Yeah.
out what I just said.
Welcome back. I want to remind you about our sponsor. If you like this content, if you like this show, then you are a knowledge hound. You are going after Google Ads knowledge. You're really digging. You want to learn. You want a firm understanding of Google Ads. You want to take your Google Ads to the next level? Optio.com/PSP. I'm telling you, it's worth the time to go to that URL. Real quick, we haven't started talking yet. Pull it up on your browser. Sign up. It's real simple, real easy, and you can connect a couple accounts. You can connect all of your accounts, one of your accounts, whatever you want to do. It does all of it, and it's a very simple interface. And I'll give you a hint. We have some new stuff coming up. They keep releasing new things, new ideas. It keeps getting better, and you're gonna get addicted because it's gonna become part of your Google Ads process, another tool in your tool belt. Check it out at optio.com/PSP.
Okay, Chris, I'm glad we saved this section for last, and we're just going to kind of group all three of these topics together here, and it's going to be bidding mistakes that you can make when you launch a Google Ads account.
Oh,
Now, the bidding doesn't matter if the targeting's not right, the keywords and the settings, and
right.
so those like come first
Get
and
that,
are
yeah. Get
more
that first. Yeah.
more consequential. But like assuming you have that right, there's not much that matters more in terms of you can just mess yourself up if you have the targeting right than the bidding.
Yeah.
And to me, it's really about limiting yourself too early on, like going with too low bids. And whether you do manual, max clicks, or target CPA bidding, there's a way to limit yourself. And it really does impact your campaign if you limit yourself too much. So why don't you go through each of those options and then kind of what the mistake can be early on upon a launch of a new account.
Yeah. So if you are brave enough and you feel like you're a veteran enough to try manual bids from the get-go, which, by the way, is entirely what, Jason and I believe, Jason, you still do manual from the get-go. Is that correct? Or you do max clicks?
Right now I like a max clicks for the first couple of weeks, and then from there we go where we go, depending on if there's conversions or if max clicks is working. But I like running the max clicks to get some data in.
I'm still 100% manual clicks from the beginning for my accounts. And let's say that you want to try that. You want to go with manual bidding. You've tried other things. Starting a new campaign, you start with manual bids. The biggest mistake that you can make is being too timid with your bids. I actually have an email string with someone that I've worked with before that is extremely frustrated right now, and they sent me a screenshot, and they've been trying back and forth. They're like, I'm not getting any clicks. I've gotten nothing. I keep opening up all this, and I have broad keywords, and they pull up the screenshot, and it's super obvious. Their bids are too low. Your car is never going to go anywhere unless you press
Such
the
a
gas.
funny thing about bids is it's obvious when you're not the one making that mistake.
Right.
But when the person makes the mistake of too low bids, for whatever reason, it's just a blind spot and they can't see it.
Yeah.
And they're thinking something else is wrong. Yeah.
They think I'm missing something. No, it's right there in front of you.
Because usually it is when there's not good results, there's something really bad going on, like the wrong keywords or disapproved ads or whatever.
Yeah. That's easy to understand. Anyone can see that.
Yeah. And bidding, you have your bid, so you're like, check it off the box. Check the box. Check it off my list. I've done the bids.
And there's like this block. People think, I can't put a $10 bid. I can't afford $10 cost per click. But in reality, you could put a $10 bid and you only pay $3. You're only going to pay the rate of whatever is required to beat that other advertiser right below you. So,
and you don't know what that rate is until you bid enough to get above that rate.
So typically, you're going to bid heavier than you would think. What I mean by heavier is higher. Bid higher than you think on those bids, and then lower them if needed. Low manual bids will kill it quick. Then, on the inverse, if you're doing automated, same thing's true with max clicks. You're doing a super low max clicks. You put like $1 on there because you're like, I'm going to try and get Google to squeeze me in on real cheap traffic.
The bid limit on max clicks.
Thank you. The bid limit in the settings. There's a settings where you can choose a bid limit. If it's too low, kills your account the same way that it would kill if you had manual bids too low. And then if you're, I don't think this is a good idea, but if you're starting out straight out of the gate with target CPA, no conversion data at all, this absolutely can kill your account. Number one, because Google has no idea about what the true signals of conversion is, and you might start getting the inverse of what these other problems are. You might start getting clicks that are $50, $60 because it's just out there in space grasping for clicks, and it has no idea what the true CPA should be or what your goal is. And you pull up your account and you're like, oh my gosh, my CPCs are out of whack. And maybe you have crappy keywords. Maybe your CPA, your target CPA bidding is just going nuts because it has no conversion data to back it up. It works, but not with no metrics. It has to have some metrics to work. So, did I cover it all?
Yeah, you did. Now, how do you know you're too low?
Good question.
It's very difficult because if you don't know what the range of CPC is, you don't know how far you are off from your industry. Sometimes the problem here, Chris, is if you bid too low, whether it's with low manual bids, whether you have a bid limit on max clicks that's too low, or you do target CPA bidding and you don't have conversions and it doesn't like that and it doesn't give it a chance to run, which I've seen happen sometimes.
Yeah.
You don't know, you won't even have like absolute top impression share sometimes, or top impression share, and you can't just look at that and go, oh, I'm only showing above organic like 10% of the time. I need to raise my bids. Sometimes you don't get any impressions at all, especially early on before that ramp up period. So it's very difficult. And I think for me, I don't think you can go wrong doing max clicks with no limit, because in that scenario, say things go well, you get clicks, but the cost per click is way higher than you want. Fine, you can put a limit in at some point and see what happens to your traffic and see what happens to your position. But at least those keywords get traffic. Once you've seen the traffic come in. Same thing with like manual bids if you just bid a ton. But with max clicks, it's going to figure out that range for you. And if there is volume for your keywords in your targeting, your location, your schedule, then you're going to get traffic because it's going to bid the right level. After a few days, it'll figure it out. So I don't think you can go wrong doing that to start. And so that's kind of where I go back to it. That's why I like max clicks, because it sets the table. It sets a range.
Yeah, it certainly is a safer bet when you're insecure about what you should do. It's definitely a safer bet. I agree.
Well, this is, to me, that's why I like it, because if you mess up the bids and they're too low, because it's hard to spot, you may not know it, and you may just be running in circles and going, well, our location wasn't big enough, or these keywords aren't big enough. I'm going to make them broad match. Well, guess what? Then sometimes you don't even get traffic with broad match if your bids are too low. It's just mathematics and science there. So it's a very risky thing to mess up. Like, it's very consequential and it's hard to spot if you are messing it up. So
it's
max
easier,
clicks, no limit.
It's easier to spot too low of a budget than it is too low of a bid.
Oh, it's easier to spot almost anything than too low of a bid, because when it's too low of a bid, you don't know that it is too low of a bid. Now, I have seen recently they put a new status in there that says like limited by targeting. Yeah, limited by targeting or something like that, which maybe can help you spot that. But
I don't know why they didn't just flat out say limited by bids.
Limited by bid level, or limited by low bid.
I guess they say that because maybe it pops up whenever you have automated bidding, so it's not really bids, it's your target bids.
Well, then I haven't looked into that status too much, but maybe it could be something like you're only targeting this area and you're targeting these keywords and your budget's $50 a day and we can only spend 30, even though you're showing up number one 80% of the time, because they're not searched for that
target.
So,
I feel like there's definitely some opportunity there for Google to make it a little more obvious when bids are the problem.
Yeah, just like they have the budget optimizer thing where you can like put in, it'll show you what you need to spend to get more traffic. It'd be great if they could show you what you need to bid to get more traffic. Well, maybe we sound like a couple of guys that don't use some columns sometimes, because they do have the columns like top of page bid and absolute top.
But that's worthless for automated. If you're running target CPA, that's worthless.
Yeah, if you made that mistake and don't have conversion data.
Yeah.
Or your target CPA is too low. You're
right. Then typical.
Yeah, no
CPC.
Matter what you're doing here, the risk is that you bid too low.
Yeah.
And I will argue this to the end here, Chris. It is not a risk to bid too high. because at any point in time, you can just pull down your bids at any point in time.
Yeah.
And so I like going high with the bids if you need to kind of figure out where you
Yeah.
are. Chris, where you are is on the Paid Search podcast.
Yes, sir.
And we'll be back next week with episode 349. Almost coming up on a big one here, Chris. 350.
That's
We'll keep it going.
send
See
me
you
a
next
present.
week.